Hello, and welcome to another episode of Weird Stuff in a Pie. Except this time, it's not weird to me. Today, we're going to do corned beef pie. Now, corned beef pie is something I was brought up with. It was a regular thing at parties, like family get-togethers and the like. My mum used to make it a lot, so I'm going to make my version today. Now, to start us off, I want to do some prep on the veg. We're going to use about 1.5 onions, get them chopped, get them lightly fried with some butter and some Worcestershire sauce. And I'm going to do some potatoes. I'll get those boiled up and ready to go. And that's going to make our filling. And I'll bring us back once I've got those done. Hello and welcome back. So I've done some prep. I have fried off some onions. Now they look dark, but that's simply because they have Worcestershire sauce in. So I've fried them. They're soft now. They're going to get added. I have untinned and cubed up as best I can the corned beef. And I have boiled the potatoes, and these are now going to be mashed. First thing I'm going to do though is blind bake the get this blind baking, get the pastry going, because the concern here is that it could be quite wet, and I don't want this to fall apart. So what we need to do first is make sure that this pie crust stays, well, it doesn't bubble in the middle. So I'm adding some beans. These are just dry beans, so they've got no moisture. You can use these, just use these to weigh down the pastry. You can't overcook or burn these beans. You just can't use them to eat later. So I'm going to set those off in an oven that I've had preheating. And I'm going to put that in for about 10 minutes to start us off. And then we'll see where we leave. There we are. Okay. Now, in the meantime, we're going to start preparing our filling after I've set a timer. So what did I say? 10 minutes. Use the tomato. Okay. So, bowl. Now there is still a little bit of water in there, but that's not a bad thing. So the job now is to add as much flavour as possible. The standard recipe, if you want to call it that, is fairly basic. Potato, corned beef, onion. But what we want to do is put flavour throughout and elevate this as best we can. So, salt, nice and easy. I'm using white pepper. I think it blends well and it's the flavour of my childhood. And I'm using quite a lot of that. I am going to add additional things, but first let's get mashing. Now, I am doing this in a specific order because this is what works in my head. I worry that if I put the onions in immediately, it'll clog up the little holes on the masher and we'll get less of an effect. So, you'll see potato by itself isn't a super strong, it's not a flavour as such, it's the base. So we're going to add other things. We're going to add some butter. I might add more of this. I'm also going to add a drop of milk. You can, of course, add anything you want. Some people might use cream. Some people might use an egg. Rosian. These days, eggs are not cheap. Now there's the butter. So I just want to get into a basic mash first. You know, it's, if you, I mean, I prefer nice and smooth. I don't really want lumps. But it's dead easy. Now I'm going to add a full tin of corned beef here. And I went all over. Well done. The cutting board and bench is clean. I'm going to start mashing that through as well. Now, I am going to add onion here. When I was a kid, I didn't like the onion in the corned beef pie. I think the reason was, looking back, was that it wasn't cooked first. So when the onion, when you bit into the pie and tasted the onion, it was still crunchy. You know, it was cooked a bit, but it was still crunchy. Now, some people might like that extra texture. I don't. I feel that in a pie, it should be, well, in this type of pie, it should be like homogeneous. There shouldn't be any major lumps or anything like that. So, there's a lot of fat in this corned beef, so that's going to help it kind of come apart and melt a little bit. Okay. Now, an extra flavour I'm going to have is a bit of brown sauce. And of course, the lid is stuck. So, brown sauce has a lot of spices and flavours itself. I mean, just as an example, it's got cane molasses, sugar, salt, spices in general, garlic powder, spirit vinegar. So it's going to add a little bit something. I'm actually going to add a little bit more. And we're just building up the flavours within here. Now, I don't mind if it is, I'm not going to call it wet as such, but it doesn't have to be firm, because when we cook it in the pie, there will be some moisture lost. Now, I was always going to cook this pie, but I got inspired to do it today by a video I saw. Now, I'm not going to name the chef it was, or the cook, but they made a corned beef pie, and it was literally corned beef. So they took it out of the tin, chopped it up, flung it in a pie crust. That blew me mind. And I think there's a reason the British get a reputation in this book, because of chefs like that. Now, I'm not a fan. We actually do know how to cook and make the best of cheap ingredients. Now, I'm stirring now just with a spoon, because, well, what else am I going to use? I'm not sticking my hand in. Yeah, so this other chef didn't use any seasoning. And for those of you who don't know, corned beef in the UK is a bit different to over in the US. It is a cured meat, I believe, anyway. Comes in a tin, and it's quite dry. It's loaded with salt for preservatives. That's pretty much it. Now, it's fine as a flavour, but there's a lot of room to build that flavour up. So to put this, basically literally put the meat in a pie, it just blew my mind. It made us actually angry. So we are doing this properly. Now I'm just going to have a taste. We need to see if if we need to add anything further. Yes, all right. Pepper's coming through. That's the strongest flavour. What am I going to do? It's quite creamy because of the butter and the fat from the meat. I'm going to add a bit more. Well done. This is why you test your equipment beforehand. A little taste. Honestly, that's a good taste. I don't think it needs anything else. So what we'll do is we'll let the pie crust cook. I'll do my thing with the blind bacon. Then we'll get it out and we'll assemble. Now I'm using a short crust pastry for the base. I'm going to use a puff pastry for the top. Now I'm not sure what effect having two different pastries will have. I want to make sure it connects up well and actually works. So I'll bring you back for the assembly, and then we'll do the cook. And welcome back. So we've par baked the pastry. I gave it 10 minutes, then I removed the beans. I gave it another 3 or 4 minutes. Then I added an egg wash to seal this up a bit. Then I baked for another 3 or 4 minutes there. I'm not happy with how this has turned out. It's bubbled in a few places, but it's not the end of the world. This isn't meant to be perfect. I'm not getting judged on it, except by the people watching this. So now we'll simply get this loaded up. And there's no need to be stingy. We're just going to cram as much of our mixture in as we can. Now, I haven't used measurements as such. It was about 3 large potatoes. It was probably around 800 grams if I had to guess though. Now, if there's a bit of mixture left over, it's not the end of the world. I've got a spoon. Now, these days, corned beef is a premium ingredient, so it seems. So if you buy a pasty from the shop, you might get that as your filling, if you're lucky. And it'll be white. There'll be absolutely nothing in it. It's a bit frustrating, really. Like, when did the cheap stuff become so expensive? Okay, I can get it all in. Happy with that. Okay. So we'll just even that out. And I am happy with that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of egg wash around the edges here. I want this to form a kind of a glue for the pastry. Now, I am concerned that there might be bits of this that are risking being overdone. Hopefully it won't burn, lesson learned. If you're seeing this video, presumably it's edible. So while I don't mind covering up mistakes, I'm not going to publish something that's going completely wrong. At least not as a full video. Okay. Now I've guesstimated the size and cut the pastry accordingly. Oh my god. And the pastry is sticking. Oh, great. Yeah. I messed this up. I'm going to pause while I get this pastry in to cool. And I'm back. I was going to cook again today. So I'll do, I'm not going to say what I'm going to do. I don't want to be surprised. But I'm going to do that tomorrow instead, where it doesn't feel like I'm doing, because today it feels like I'm doing an audition for the circus. Anywho, pastry is now loose from the paper. We're simply going to drape it over. And then we will crimp it, try and seal it to the pastry that has already been cooked. Yeah, and we're worried about the pastry topping on this. I may have pushed it a little bit too far. Anyway, we'll do our best. So let's get an egg wash on this. At least look good. Make sure to do the sides. And if you watch my channel, you probably don't need this tip, but that chef from earlier did annoy me. This little pastry bush cost me $2.99. It's probably the best investment I have done for this channel. I've seen this other chef just pour on the eggs and almost make an omelette on top. That doesn't look good. If you don't have a channel, try and do it as best you can. There is a lot of moisture cooked through this, between the mashed potato and the onions and so on, as well as what I added with the milk and Worcestershire sauce and the butter. So we are going to need to put some Evans some vents. Oh, I think that looks best. Right, I'm going to pop this in the oven initially for 20 minutes. And we'll see where we are at that time. So I'll be back soon.
Hello from the future. Guess who forgot to turn his mic on during this section? You don't need a second guess, believe me. Anywho, let's do some sound. So, we've got the pie out of the oven. I have allowed it to cool a little, but I did want to try it while it was still warm. So, you can see I'm having a bit of a job getting it out here. This tin is not ideal for this kind of pie. Whenever I've seen it served up in the past, it's usually in like a rectangular tin with sharp sides. So it's easier to get your knife in or your spatula or your fish slice or whatever it is you're using. So I'm having a bit of a fight here. Now, spoiler, it is better when it's cold, but this is where we are. So it doesn't need to be pretty anyway, because if it's hot, you're either going to just have it off a plate, or you'll have it with some chips or some vegetables, gravy, whatever. So I'm just talking about the consistency here. It doesn't look appetizing, let's be honest. It's just a pink mush, but looks on everything else I'm apparently told. But anyway, trying it here. First thing that comes through is the pepper, the savouriness, bit of saltiness, which is what you'd expect from corned beef. But I tell you what, it's comforting, it's satisfying, and I would have this any day of the week. There's a reason that this is so popular, and it's not because of the price necessarily. It's because of it's home cooked, it's traditional, it's what people remember from their childhoods. Anyway, we'll be back in a minute when it's cold.
Hello and welcome back. So I've allowed the pie to go cold in the fridge. So now we can get a true taste test of it. Let's get a piece out. So this is holding together much better. So this is quite firm now. And if we just run a fork through, so a spoon, you can perhaps see that it is quite firm on the, it's quite sticky on the fork, on the spoon. Taste-wise, the first thing you get is pepperiness. You can taste the onion. There's a bit of sweetness from the onion. I actually quite like that, which is kind of ironic considering how much I didn't like it as a kid. Okay, it's right in the childhood that. You get the pepperiness right up, like right in the sinus there. Okay, so I think overall I'm quite happy with this. Now, there's a few things I've learned. Made quite a few errors today. I think I need a different type of pie tin if I'm going to do pie with a base because it keeps sticking. Maybe one with like a detachable bottom. This is probably good for those half pies where there's just pastry on the top. Just a round cost on this. This entire thing, I was working it out, cost me about £6.50. That's including the meat, the vegetables, the pastry. I haven't really been able to say how much the pepper would be, that kind of thing. Now, I've got to get portions out of this for £6.50, maybe £7 tops. Now, if you were to go to a shop and get, say, a corned beef pasty, it's going to be at least £2. And you're not going to get anywhere near that amount of film. It'll be, I can't even estimate it. That amount of filling, it'd probably go through 20 or 30 corned beef pasties. So I know corned beef is not as cheap as it used to be, but I think this one cost me £2.50 ish from Lidl. Give them a shout out, and it goes a long way. I would recommend this. I would definitely recommend this because, like I said, you can make 8 portions from the ingredients I've used. And honestly, you could probably expand it further by using more potatoes. Uh, so yeah, so I'm happy with this as a success despite all the errors I've made. Would 100% recommend it, and I'll 100% make it again. Thanks for joining us, and if you enjoyed the video, please give me a like. I'm getting some good views, but no hardly any likes. And comment, what would you have done different? What would you like to see in the future? Please let me know so I can engage. Thank you.